Freedom doesn't usually arrive in one big moment. It's something that we ease into. It's something that we practice and we need to practice. Welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast. I'm Jo Clark and I'm so glad you're here. And this is a podcast for women who are ready to break free from outdated stereotypes, rediscover themselves, and embrace the endless opportunities that midlife brings. Each week, I'll share expert advice, actionable strategies, and inspiring conversations with incredible women who are redefining what it means to thrive in midlife and beyond. From health and wellness to reigniting your purpose and passions, this is your go-to podcast for feeling empowered, supported, and seen. And midlife isn't the end. It's your time to shine, rewrite your story, and create a life that you truly love. So let's get started. Hello and welcome to episode 163. I'm so glad you're here. Today we're going to be talking about something that sits at the heart of midlife, and that's freedom. Freedom in the second half of life is deep, it's layered, and it's personal. And often it's a little bit confronting because we spend years and sometimes even decades just longing for that bit of freedom. Yet when it finally does arrive, it doesn't always feel the way we imagined. So today we're going to gently unpack what freedom really means, and then why it feels complicated, and how we can begin creating our own version of it in the middle of life. Now, one thing I've learned is this: freedom in midlife is not one single thing. There is no universal definition because your version of freedom is meant to look different from everybody else's. So if you think about it, in our 20s, freedom often looked like adventure, traveling, trying new things, saying yes to almost everything. And then in our 30s, that freedom shifted. It became more elusive because we were juggling our careers, relationships, and raising families. Freedom was something we just simply squeezed in around everybody else's needs. But then in our 40s, our 50s, and beyond, freedom changes again, and it becomes less about doing and more about being. It becomes about alignment, about authenticity, about creating a life that genuinely reflects who you are now and not who you were in the past. But the challenge is this: we've actually spent so much time and putting everyone else first that when that space finally arrives, we don't always know what to do with it. And let's start with one of the biggest midlife transitions that most women experience, and that's having an empty nest. So for years, you've been needed. You have been in the thick of it and in the trenches of motherhood. You're thinking ahead, you're planning, you're coordinating, and you're caring. Your days had a rhythm, even though it might have been chaotic. And then suddenly, the house becomes quieter. There are fewer responsibilities on your to-do list. There's less noise and there's more space. And people say, "Oh, you must love all that new freedom." But it doesn't always feel like freedom at first. It feels unfamiliar. It feels emotional. It can feel like your whole identity is shifting. And then you find yourself wondering, who am I now? What do I actually want? And what on earth does my day look like without everyone else's needs dictating it? And you know what? This is completely normal because empty nesting is both a letting go and an opening up. And it takes time to grow into this new kind of freedom. And I'll talk about this in an episode that's going to be coming up in the podcast. Now, another huge shift comes from work, especially structured, institutionalized work. I'll give you my example. So for decades, my life ran on bells, terms, and calendars. Holidays were predetermined, days were predictable, and so we had the faces were changing, but the rhythm of the school life never really changed. And I didn't realize how much that shaped my identity until I left it. And when I stepped into a life where I could choose my own schedule, choose my projects, choose the way I wanted my business to go, choose my hours, that freedom felt so beautiful, but it also was really unfamiliar. It was almost strange. This new time freedom actually takes practice to get used to it. You have to unlearn that habit of asking for permission, and you have to relearn how to use your hours. You have to reconnect with what you want instead of what a bigger system expects you to do. And personal freedom showed up in unexpected ways. The freedom to design my day around my energy, the freedom to take holidays when I want, the freedom to learn about the things that genuinely interest me, the freedom to create content that is all mine, like this podcast, and the freedom to explore a new career. And this freedom to keep learning who I am in this season of my life. So, for anyone who is shifting into retirement or part-time work, this newly found freedom does take a bit of time to get used to. And you know what? That's okay. And now there's another experience that many women have. Some never allow themselves space at all, even when the kids are grown, even when they could slow down, even when life technically offers more room. They stay constantly busy, not because they love being busy, but because slowing down feels really unfamiliar. That stillness feels uncomfortable. Being alone with their thoughts is really unsettling. So if this is you and I'm describing you, you're not failing. You're just simply living in a pattern that you've been in for years. But now here's the truth. If you don't intentionally create space, the space that you crave is never going to appear. So you can just begin gently. It might be 10 minutes of quiet time, a slow walk, a cup of tea outside. One morning a week where you ask, what do I actually need today? And that's where freedom begins. So let's move into the 5 forms of freedom that matter most in midlife. And these aren't checklists at all for you to go through. They're just experiences, they're feelings, and they're actually almost like an invitation. And every woman is just going to relate to these different forms of freedom differently. Now, the first freedom is physical freedom, feeling capable in your own body. And I really want to say this gently. Physical freedom in midlife is going to look very different to what it did in your 20s and your 30s. Because let's face it, your body is different. Your hormones are different. And for many women, you might not have had the time to focus on your own health and wellness for years. And physical freedom isn't about going back. It's about moving forward with the body that you have right now and what you're going to have going forward. It's about waking up with more energy. It's moving without having constant pain. It's feeling strong enough to do the things that matter to you. And that might look like travel, time spent with grandchildren, walking, lifting, living well. Because in midlife, health becomes less about how we might look and much more about how we live. Having that physical freedom can really expand your world because when your body feels well, life actually does feel bigger and it feels more possible. Now, the second type of freedom is a time freedom, and it's one of the most emotional forms of freedom. Because for decades, our hours belonged to everyone else, like I said, children, work, partners, routine, the whole mental load. And so when time suddenly opens up, whether it's through having an empty nest or through work changes, it can feel both exciting and confusing. And so many women say, oh, I just wanted this time to myself for so long. Why does this freedom feel so strange? Well, because for the first time in years and most likely decades, your time is yours. Time freedom isn't about having more hours. It's now about the courage to use those hours on yourself and for yourself. So let's talk about emotional freedom, the third type. This is the slow, gentle unraveling of the weight that you've been carrying. It might be the weight of guilt or pressure or expectations, responsibility, perfectionism, self-criticism, old hurts, old identity, people-pleasing, you name it. So emotional freedom begins when you let go of all of those stories that no longer serve you. It might sound like this: I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to carry everything. And I don't need everyone else's approval. I am allowed to want more. I am allowed to change. Now, emotional freedom, it can sometimes feel like you're coming home to yourself. Now, the fourth type of freedom that I want to talk about is relationship freedom. And by midlife, something does become very clear. Not every relationship gets to come with you into this next chapter. Relationship freedom means that you are choosing relationships that feel nourishing and supportive to you. It's the permission to set boundaries, to say no, to let friendship shift, and to release draining dynamics, to move toward people who bring out the best in you. It's the freedom to be surrounded by the people who feel like home rather than the people who feel like you've got an obligation to. And as you grow, your circle is naturally going to evolve. That's a sign of personal growth. Now, the fifth type of freedom that I want to talk about today is the freedom of self-expression. And, this is often the most exciting freedom. For decades, many of us have shaped our identity around our parenting, around work, and around our responsibilities that we might have with both of those. And we adjusted ourselves to fit our roles and our expectations. But midlife actually invites a return to yourself, a rediscovery. And women begin asking, who am I now? What do I want? What lights me up? What have I put off for years? This whole freedom of self-expression is the permission to explore again, to explore new or old hobbies that you loved, new passions, new travel experiences, new dreams, new ways of dressing, new ways of living and being. It's becoming more you than you have been for ages. And it's not changing everything, but it's revealing yourself again. And like so many past guests say when I ask them what they love about this stage of life, in their words, and put your hands over your ears if you don't like swearing, they say they just give less fucks. And I've certainly felt that too. And you probably have also. But then there are some real barriers to freedom. So let's talk honestly about what can get in our way. Because more often than not, the biggest barrier isn't our circumstances. It's often ourselves. It's our self-talk, our fears, our uncertainty about the unknown, that fear of slowing down after decades of being in motion, that fear of judgment if we finally do things differently, that feeling guilty for putting ourselves on the list after years of putting everyone else first. These old habits die hard because they've been built over decades and they can be so deeply ingrained that we don't even notice that we're repeating them. So not being sure what we want anymore because we've spent so long meeting the needs of others is very common. Identity shifts that leave us feeling that little bit unanchored. And of course, it's that quite painful thought that many women carry. Maybe it's just too late for me. These aren't weaknesses. Please don't see them as such. These are just simply part of being human. They're that whole part of growing, part of navigating a new season of life. And freedom doesn't begin with having to have it all figured out. Freedom just begins with awareness, with noticing the patterns, and with understanding the fears, with seeing yourself clearly without judgment. It's awareness first, not perfection. And so if you're just wondering where to start, like I said before, keep it simple. So here are some more ideas. Just choose one small decision each day that honors you. Start with finding a small piece of time for yourself. And if that feels really hard, maybe it's just 5 minutes, then 10 minutes, and then keep building up. Or create 1 hour a week that's just yours. Perhaps move one draining commitment that you've got. Try one new experience every month. Ask yourself what can look like for you in this season of life. Dream big, start small, but just start. And I really do mentor many women who aren't sure where to start. So if you need that type of support, then perhaps mentoring could really help you. And if you want to know more about mentoring and you might want to work with me, you are welcome to book a free 20-minute connection call. It might just be the best gift that you give yourself for the coming year ahead. So as always, I just want to reassure you, midlife is a season that holds so much possibility. And not because everything suddenly becomes easy, but because you finally have the chance to come back to yourself. This chapter invites you to look at your life with fresh eyes, to ask what matters now, to explore how you want to live moving forward. Freedom doesn't usually arrive in one big moment. It's something that we ease into. It's something that we practice and we need to practice. It's something that grows as we become clearer about who we are and what we need. And the beautiful thing is, it's never too late to create a life that feels true to you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope our conversation in this episode really helps you to think about your own version of freedom in a very new and gentle way. So I'll see you next week. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. I hope you feel inspired to make the next chapter of your life the best one yet. Now remember to share this episode with someone else who would love it and connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn at Jo Clark Coaching. All the links and the details from today's episode are in the show notes or at joclarkcoaching.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe this show on your favorite podcast app and leave a 5-star rating and review. This helps more midlife women find these empowering conversations. I can't wait to chat with you next week. Until then, take care and keep creating a life that you love.